Welcome back, true soldiers. Last time we were here, we were talking about the first and the last trumpet, comparing the two, how the golden calf scenario while they were waiting on Moses to come back was very similar to where we are now, waiting on our Messiah to come back. And I had mentioned that it was similar to the second coming, as in Moses didn't just go up the mountain one time, there were multiple trips. And I wanted to clarify how many trips there were, because when I was speaking, in many ways, I made it sound like it was just two. But as I laid it out for clarity for myself and for you guys, I wanted to show you what I came across before we start talking about the Feast of Tabernacles, which is what this video is going to be about in terms of what that means for us today. I know a lot of people have already finished celebrating, and today's their last day while I'm making this video, but it's on my heart to share what I am seeing. So I want to share it real fast. But before I do, I just want to point out that Moses, again, just like our Messiah, was obedient no matter how much his instructions were against his own will. He did his Father's will many, many times, and not always perfectly. We see that towards the end when he was disobedient, lacked some faith at the end. But we see when he is called up on that mountain, being a man, older than 80 years old, called up to Mount Sinai, not some small little foothill. This is quite the climb. And he was told to go up and down this mountain many times, and he did just that. And I could be wrong on my count. You guys can help me out. But I had him going up more than three times, because by the time we get to Exodus 19:20, it's three times, according to the way I see this. And again, I could be wrong. But that third time that he's up there, he's called down again in 1921, or verse 1921, not the year. Please don't be confused. But then we see the Ten Commandments given when Moses is with the people. I always thought the first time it was given was kind of like the movie where he was up there on the mountain. That scene is so, I mean, just really well done, the scene, but it's not completely accurate. There was a moment on the mountain where our Father was writing on the tables of stone, but this is not that time. This is the commandments being spoken, and the people, after this event happens, I thought Moses was on the mountain, but according to this, they're standing, it says, afar off, or they stood afar off and said unto Moses. How are they going to talk to Moses if he's way up there? He's directly with them. They are hearing the Most High speak. And so they were terrified. They said, basically, speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. They were very humbled by our Father's words and his voice, and just that first trumpet scenario, how loud it must have been. All that going on, they were like, look, you be our mediator. Go to him on our behalf. And so we see then, not far along, verse 21 here, same chapter, that the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness, or that word could be translated as cloud, where God was. I believe that's the translation for that word. And so he's going up there again and given judgments this time. And then we see a command that he should go up there, and not alone this time, with Aaron, his brother. And he says right here to Moses, come up unto the Lord. This is several chapters away. And so I think this, in my opinion, he's still yet to come up with Aaron, but he's given additional instructions to not just bring Aaron, but also Nadab and Abihu and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship ye afar off. And Moses alone shall come near. So they're going with him, but they're not all making the journey to the top destination where Moses is going. They will be afar off doing their worship. And so I think that's a really cool scene. And we see that Moses did just that. And he wrote down all the words that he was told. And he went up in the morning and he built an altar under the hill. And there were 12 pillars, one for each of the 12 tribes. And then when Moses went up the mountain, this is the fourth time, they saw the God of Israel. And there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of sapphire stone. Imagine that. And so then, not just four times, there's a fifth time. Moses going up the mountain. I think this is mind blowing. And you can read where he went up and received the law and the commandments and tables of stone. and the law and the commandments which were written on them were on both sides. And so I think that this goes against my preconceived notions based on the video that I watched, the Ten Commandments movie, which is a good movie, but it's misleading because I thought it was just the Ten Commandments written on these stones, but he's given more instructions and they're all written on stone. And then he goes down to people who've already heard the Ten Commandments. Moses now has them and the law on two tables of stone, and that's where the golden calf scenario happens. And so they were getting impatient, waiting on him to come back. Wasn't his second coming, it was his fifth coming. So when I was comparing this to the Messiah's second coming, I was trying to convey the point that he didn't just go up once and come back and there was the golden calf. He went up, he came back, he went up, he came back. There was instructions received. He went up, and he came back, and our Messiah, when he was with his people, he was often going up to the mountain, spending time with his father, coming back to them, going away, spending time with his father, coming back. Very, very similar. And now we're waiting on that return, that final trumpet. And so I wanted to make sure you guys know that it wasn't a literal second coming of Moses. He was going up and down the mountain many times. He was a mountain climber, and that is shocking to me because I did not realize he went up that many times before the golden calf scenario. So you could bet these people, they get tired of waiting. They get impatient. And I think a lot of us get like that in our own lives. We need to have some patience. And now to get on to the subject that I was wanting to talk about, it's the Feast of Tabernacles, something that I've only been doing for several years, and it's been a blessing. I know that not everyone in this dispersion can do it the exact same way, and that's part of the law. It's written in there that way about the land, as long as you live in the land aspect. And I don't live in the land right now. Hopefully, I will be brought to the land of promise when the kingdom returns and our beloved Son comes down with the Most High. It's going to be something special, and we are able to then be inside the camp with him, reigning, as it says in Revelation, with him. There will be survivors outside the camp that will be required, according to prophecy, to come there every year during the Feast of Tabernacles so that their nation could get rain. And so I think that practicing it out now is a really good thing to do. I know, again, not everyone can. We have people that live in Alaska that say, we would basically almost die of hypothermia. It would be a major challenge, and our Father knows that. He knows that it's not possible for everyone in this dispersion, but if you can, it's a blessing, and it helps you remember that He brought His children out of slavery, and He's doing it again. He's bringing us out of slavery, setting us free, and He gave us a really good example of how to live with His beloved Son. And his beloved Son did indeed keep his father's commands, and he was in the land at the time, so he kept the Feast of Tabernacles. And when I read about this story, it really humbled me because you're supposed to be joyous according to the instructions given to us. And I am seeing that that isn't something that's easy to do in today's world because there's so many distractions. There's so many things that can cause stress in our lives, differences of opinions. People are just spoiled in general. And so it's not easy to make everybody happy and to be joyous all the time. But our Messiah had some unique circumstances when he was trying to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And this is where the story takes a sad turn because we see that people back then, even though they understood the concept of the Feast of Tabernacles, they didn't understand the joy aspect, the love, and the things that are mentioned right here. I'll go ahead and read this first in Deuteronomy 16, where it says, "Thou shalt observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days. After that, thou hast gathered in thy corn and thy wine, and thou shalt rejoice in thy feast." So rejoicing is a big deal. "Thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant and the Levite, the stranger and the fatherless and the widow that are within thy gates. 7 days shalt thou keep a solemn feast unto the Lord thy God in the place which the Lord shall choose, because the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thine increase and in all the works of thine hands. Therefore thou shalt surely rejoice." It's not rejoicing based on what you already have, although you're doing that as well, but you're rejoicing because you know He will provide. He's going to provide His increase, as it says right here. And so the rejoicing, the bringing in of the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, something a lot of us forget about. There's people outside our gates who would love to see the joy that we have to partake in something like this and remember what our Father and his people have been through. But the people who were after him, the Pharisees, they were not keeping the law. In John chapter 7, verses 1 through 11, that Jesus was walking after these things in Galilee, for he did not wish to walk in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. They were trying to kill him during this time because it says the feast of the Jews was nigh, that of Tabernacles, his brethren. So his brethren trying to kill him when the Feast of Tabernacles is coming close, when they're supposed to be getting excited about this and rejoicing. It says, therefore said unto him, remove hence and go away to Judea, that thy disciples also may behold thy works that thou dost. For no one in secret doth anything, and himself seeketh to be in public. If thou dost these things, manifest thyself to the world. They're wanting what he does to be seen by the world so that he can just become famous. That people would go, wow, you're doing all these great things, because they see it, they know it, and they feel like that's the kind of reception he's going to get. And so it says here, for not even were his brethren believing in him. Jesus therefore said unto them, my time is not yet present, but your time is always ready. The world is not able to hate you, but me it doth hate, because I testify concerning it, that its works are evil. Go ye up to this feast. I do not yet go up to this feast, because my time hath not been fulfilled. And saying these things to them, he remained in Galilee. And when his brethren went up, then also he himself went up to the feast, not manifestly, but as in secret. The Jews therefore were seeking him in the feast, and said, where is that one? And so he is having to go, our Messiah, in secret. His own relatives, his own bloodline trying to kill him. They aren't bringing in the strangers, the widows, people like him. They are trying to kill him during this joyous occasion. And so they are not law keepers. I think a lot of people see them as such, but they're directly breaking the commands of how to keep this feast during the feast itself. Our Messiah, the beloved Son, showing us that even if people are trying to do these things to you, you can still keep your Father's will perfectly. He's our example to live by. And with that being said, most of you know that in the past, keeping commandments while people are trying to kill you was a thing that followed shortly after. Whenever our Messiah resurrected and people were learning the truth and trying to walk after our Father's commandments, they were labeled as Judaizers, a term that was created to spread hatred of anything having to do with the Jews. And the commandments weren't just given to the Jews, they were given to all of Israel. And our Father, even in prophecy, speaks about people who are going to be made greater than sons of daughters that keep his Sabbath. That's in Isaiah. I believe it's chapter 56. And so they wanted to have people doing things like that punished for their Judaizing. And so it became a law back in 363 and 364 AD when they changed the Sabbath to Sunday. And I know we hear talks of things like this with Project 2025, and they're talking about a Sunday law, with the Sunday being the new Sabbath. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I could see it happening, because it's the one commandment where buying, selling, and trading is prohibited. And it's a commandment that if they recreated the ways of Rome, which they've already done in many places and are still doing right now, resting on the Sabbath must not be done, they said. You must instead work on that day. This is Rome. Again, a lot like what we're seeing now, rather honoring the Lord's day, and if they can, resting then as Christians. But if any shall be found to be Judaizers, let them be anathema, or essentially cut off from Christ. And so keeping the Father's commandments could have you cut off from the Messiah according to their man-made doctrines. And that has spread far and wide. That's why now when you see, Chick-fil-A keeping their Sabbath on Sunday, they're looked at as saints. People look at them as so Christianly. Wow, it's amazing. And it's good they're taking a day of rest, but whenever the day of rest was enforced back then, it was Sunday. And so that stuff is talked about in Project 2025. I haven't dug too deep into that yet. I know that certain things may happen in the near future where we're going to be looking more at our Messiah's example and having to live by it more than we already are. I mean, we already are. We should be. You all should be. But there's going to be a time where our own may be trying to come after us like they did for him. And I think that's one of the many reasons why he was sent as that example. He was going to be obedient even unto death. And so he was obedient even though his life was in danger. And I think it's important to remember that as we have our rejoicing times like this, where we're coming together and rejoicing with other believers, remembering both what our Father has been through as well as what his Son has endured, doing many of the things that we are now doing, those of us who can. And so I know that there's lots of debates about calendars and things like that going on as well in all of this. I don't want to get into any of that. I just want to talk about the heart aspect of it because we are in important times and prophetic times where things are going to start changing, I believe, rather quickly. And now that we're learning our Father's ways, it's not long before that dragon gets angry again because the dragon was angry originally with those who kept the commandments and had the faith in our Messiah. That's what made the dragon angry. The dragon has given its power to the beast, I believe, and we're seeing that same anger come back. And so that is all I wanted to share today, other than the fact that we will be in Texas really soon for TrutherCon that will be happening on October 25th and 26th. I will be speaking on Sunday, so if you can't make it to the first day, try to make it at least by the second day because I will be there speaking towards the end of the event. And then we're going to have a dinner afterwards so we can all hang out and socialize as well. But I just wanted to give some reminders of the times that we're in, how we're supposed to be doing these things, the example we have before us, what a blessing it is to live in these times where we have so many coming together, guided by our Father's Holy Spirit, the best of his inheritance, seeking these things out. You all are a major blessing. So I thank you for your support, your kind words that you have shared along the way to provide encouragement at times when things can be extremely discouraging when you're sharing what you believe to be the truth, and most of the world is of a differing opinion. And so we thank you guys. We love you. Stay humble, stay ready, and we will see you next time.